Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion and watched the stars through the massive viewing screen. His ship was the pride of the Hegemony Navy, a kilometer-long dreadnought that had never lost a battle. The crew moved with practiced efficiency around him, their scales gleaming under the blue lights of the command center. Communications. Officer Quinn approached with a datapad in his clawed hands. His voice carried excitement as he spoke to the Admiral. "Sir, we have received the intelligence reports you requested about the human activities in this sector." Voss took the pad and read through the information with growing interest. 3 months had passed since the humans made contact with the Galactic Federation, and already they were causing problems. These primitive creatures had barely learned to travel between stars, yet they dared to venture into contested space. "Tell me about this human vessel," Voss said, his deep voice echoing across the bridge. Quinn pulled up holographic displays showing grainy sensor readings. "Our scouts detected a single ship in the outer rim of the Kepler system. Based on energy signatures, it appears to be a cargo vessel, possibly lost or conducting unauthorized surveys." The Admiral studied the readings with satisfaction. Humans were known to use crude fusion drives and basic metal hulls for their ships. Their weapons were simple projectile systems that could barely scratch modern shielding. This would be an easy lesson to teach these upstart creatures about respecting galactic law. "Have you prepared Captain Reeves' squadron for the hunt?" Voss asked. "Yes, sir. 3 destroyers are already moving to intercept. Captain Reeve expects to have the human vessel captured within 12 hours, Voss nodded approvingly. Reeve was one of his best officers, experienced in dealing with rebellious species. The captain had a talent for making examples that other races would remember for generations. Meanwhile, Captain Reeve stood on the bridge of his destroyer, the Void Striker. Around him, his crew prepared for what they all assumed would be a routine capture mission. The ship hummed with energy as its plasma drives pushed them toward the target coordinates. Navigator Brix called out from his station. "Captain, we are approaching the outer edge of the search zone. Sensors are beginning to pick up trace energy signatures." Reeve moved to the tactical display where Weapons Officer Thane was analyzing the readings. The human ship was somewhere ahead of them, probably trying to hide behind one of the system's many asteroids or moons. "What do we know about human combat capabilities?" Reeve asked his tactical officer. Thane brought up files on his screen. "Very limited, sir. They use kinetic weapons, mostly missiles and projectile cannons. Their ships have thick armor but no energy shielding. Intelligence suggests their largest military vessels are only about 300 meters long." The bridge crew chuckled at this information. Even their destroyers were twice that size, and they carried enough firepower to level a small city. The humans would surrender as soon as they realized what they were facing. Communications Officer Quinn, who had transferred to Reeve's ship for this mission, was monitoring human transmissions. He found their language amusing with its simple sounds and basic structure. Their tactical discussions were laughably primitive. "Captain," Quinn called out, "I am intercepting human communications. They seem to be discussing something about testing new systems and maintaining operational security." "Typical human arrogance," Reeve replied. "They probably think their basic technology can compete with ours." The 3 destroyers spread out in a search pattern, their sensors sweeping space for any sign of the human vessel. Each ship carried a crew of 200 and enough weapons to destroy a space station. Against a single human cargo ship, they were overwhelming force. Hours passed as they searched the system. The human ship seemed to be very good at hiding, but that only made the hunt more interesting. Eventually they would find it, and then the galaxy would see what happened to species that didn't know their place. Engineer Vex reported from his station. "Captain, I am detecting some unusual interference on our long-range sensors. It could be natural phenomena from the system's gas giant, or possibly some kind of jamming," Reeve frowned. Humans didn't have jamming technology advanced enough to affect hegemony sensors. It was probably just space weather, but he made a note to investigate further. Navigator Brix suddenly called out with excitement. "Contact! I have a massive energy signature bearing 27 Mark IV. Distance approximately 50,000 kilometers. The bridge fell silent as everyone stared at the readings. The energy signature was enormous, far larger than any cargo. Ship should produce. Thane ran the numbers through his computers twice before reporting his findings. Captain, this signature is reading as approximately 2.5 kilometers in length. That cannot be correct. Reeve studied the display with growing confusion. No human ship in their database was anywhere near that size. Their largest vessels were tiny cargo haulers and passenger transports. This had to be some kind of sensor error. Could it be a space station? Navigator Bricks suggested. Perhaps humans have established a hidden base in this system. But even as he said it, the readings showed the signature was moving. Space stations didn't move, and certainly not with the kind of controlled acceleration their sensors were detecting. Communications Officer Quinn tried to boost their sensor resolution, but the interference was getting stronger. Whatever was out, there seemed to be affecting their equipment just by existing. His scaled fingers moved quickly over his controls as he attempted to clear up the readings. "Sir," Quinn reported, "the interference is increasing. Our main sensors are starting to malfunction. I cannot get a clear image of whatever is out there." The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Their technology was supposed to be superior to anything humans could produce. How could a primitive human vessel cause such advanced sensor disruption? Weapons. Officer Thane prepared his systems for combat just in case. The plasma cannons charged with a familiar whine, and the ship's defensive screens powered up to full strength. Whatever they were about to encounter, they would be ready for it. Reeve ordered his other 2 destroyers to form up on his flanks. If this was some kind of human trick, they would meet it with overwhelming force. The hegemony had not maintained its dominance by showing weakness to inferior species. As they moved closer to investigate, their main display began to flicker. The interference was now so strong that their computers were struggling to process the sensor data. Navigation became difficult as their instruments provided contradictory readings. Then, slowly, a shape began to emerge from behind the system's largest moon. At first, it was just a shadow against the star field, barely visible on their compromised displays. But as it moved into the open, the true size of what they were seeing became clear. It was a ship, unmistakably artificial and definitely under intelligent control. But it was massive beyond anything in their experience, dwarfing even the mighty Eternal Dominion. The hull stretched into the distance, bristling with structures that could only be weapon systems. Navigator Bricks stared at his instruments in disbelief. "Captain, I am reading length at 2.5 kilometers, width at 800 meters, and height at 400 meters. This vessel is larger than our dreadnought." The bridge fell into stunned silence as the full implications hit them. This was not a lost cargo ship. This was not some primitive human vessel stumbling around in space. This was a warship, and it was bigger than anything the hegemony had ever built. Captain Reeve stood frozen, watching as the massive human vessel continued to emerge from behind the moon. Its hull was dark and angular, covered in weapon ports, and sensor arrays that spoke of military purpose. This was not what they had expected to find. The hunt had suddenly become something else entirely. Captain Reeve stared at his weapons display in complete disbelief. The plasma beams that should have crippled any known vessel had simply vanished against the human ship's defenses. His most powerful weapons, capable of melting through battleship armor, had accomplished nothing at all. Engineer Vex frantically worked at his console, running diagnostic after diagnostic on their weapon systems. His scaled fingers moved quickly over the controls as he tried to understand what had gone wrong. Every reading showed that their cannons had fired correctly, but the target showed no damage whatsoever. "Captain," Vex reported with confusion in his voice, "our weapons functioned perfectly. The plasma beams reached the target and made contact, but somehow they were completely absorbed or deflected." Reeve turned to his tactical officer with growing alarm. "Thane, what kind of shielding technology could completely stop our main battery?" Thane studied his readings with increasing bewilderment. Nothing in our database, sir. Even our most advanced shield systems would show some kind of energy bleed-through. This is like the beams simply ceased to exist when they hit that ship. On the bridge of the Indomitable Will, Captain Kane watched the alien weapon fire with professional interest. The plasma technology was impressive, probably capable of destroying most vessels in the galaxy. But human defensive systems had been designed to face much more dangerous threats. Tactical report, Kane called to his weapons officer. Janet Cruz checked her displays before responding. Enemy plasma weapons registered at approximately 50 terawatts per beam. Our reactive shielding absorbed the energy and distributed it harmlessly through the heat sinks. No damage to any system. Kane nodded with satisfaction. The aliens were about to learn why humans designed their military equipment the way they did. Every system on the Indomitable Will had been built to survive. In the worst possible conditions, including direct hits from weapons far more powerful than anything these aliens could produce. Return fire, Kane ordered calmly. Warning shots only. Bracket their formation, but do not hit them directly. The Indomitable Will's main guns rotated slowly to target the alien vessels. The massive rail cannons charged with a deep humming sound that resonated through the ship's hull. When they fired, the kinetic rounds accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed in less than a second. The alien sensors detected the incoming projectiles, but their computers could not calculate proper intercept courses. The human rounds were moving too fast and creating spatial distortions that confused their targeting systems. The projectiles passed between the alien ships, missing them by mere kilometers. Navigator Bricks watched his instruments with growing terror as the human weapons fire past his ship. Captain, those projectiles were traveling at 12% of light speed. Our computers cannot even track objects moving that fast. The kinetic rounds continued past the alien formation and struck an asteroid several million kilometers away. The impact was visible as a brilliant flash of light when the rock simply disintegrated from the massive energy transfer. Where a mountain-sized asteroid had existed moments before, now there was only expanding debris. Captain Reeve felt fear creep into his mind as he realized what he was seeing. Those had been warning shots, deliberately aimed to miss his ships. If the humans had wanted to destroy his vessels, they could have done so instantly with weapons that his defenses could not even detect properly. Back on the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Voss received the panicked reports from Reeves' squadron with growing disbelief. The human vessel was not only larger than their intelligence had suggested, it was employing technology that defied everything they knew about physics, weapons. Officer Pike tried to explain what their sensors were detecting. Admiral, the human ship's power output is greater than most space stations. Our readings suggest they have multiple fusion reactors working in parallel, plus some kind of additional power source we cannot identify. Voss studied the tactical displays with mounting concern. This was not a cargo vessel or even a simple warship. This was a mobile fortress designed for deep space operations, probably capable of operating independently for years without resupply. Science. Officer Kell approached with additional analysis. Sir, I have been studying the human vessel's construction. The hull appears to be composed of multiple armor layers with some kind of reactive defensive system. Even our most powerful weapons would require sustained bombardment to achieve meaningful damage. The Admiral realized they had made a catastrophic error in judgment. The humans had not been hiding in the outer rim because they were weak or lost. They had been conducting weapons testing with technology far beyond anything the hegemony possessed. On the Indomitable Will, Kane opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. His voice was calm, but carried an unmistakable threat as he spoke. To the alien commanders. Alien vessels, this is Captain Kane of the Terran Navy. You have opened fire on a vessel flying under a flag of truce. You have 60 seconds to stand down and explain your actions, or I will consider this an act of war. The bridge of Reeves' ship fell silent as the human captain's words echoed through their communications system. The aliens had expected to face a primitive species with basic technology. Instead, they found themselves confronting a military force that made their own capabilities Look obsolete. Communications. Officer Quinn tried to contact Admiral Voss for new orders, but the human ship was somehow jamming their long-range communications. They were on their own, facing an enemy that had just demonstrated the ability to destroy them without effort. Engineer Vex continued his analysis of the human weapon systems, but his findings only increased their desperation. Captain, the kinetic weapons they use create gravitational distortions when fired. The projectiles are not just fast, they are actually warping space around them as they travel. Reeve realized that retreat might not even be possible. If the humans could fire weapons at 12% of light speed, they could probably hit his ships no matter how fast he tried to run. His elegant destroyers, built for speed and maneuverability, were useless against an enemy that could strike. Faster than thought. Tactical Officer Thane reported more disturbing readings. Sir, the human ship is charging additional weapon systems. I am detecting energy buildup in multiple locations along their hull. Whatever they are preparing, it is much larger than what they used for the warning shots. The 60 seconds that Kane had given them were almost over, and Reeve had no good options. Surrender meant admitting that the hegemony had been wrong about human capabilities, which would have serious political consequences. But continuing to fight meant facing weapons that his ships could not even properly defend against. Kane's voice came over the communication channel again, still calm, but with an edge of impatience. 30 seconds remaining, alien captain. I suggest you use them wisely. Captain Reeve looked around his bridge at the frightened faces of his crew. They had all realized the same thing he had. Their first glimpse of a human warship might vary. Well, be their last glimpse of anything at all, the countdown continued, and Reeve knew he had to make a decision that would determine whether his crew lived or died. The humans were waiting for his answer, and their massive weapons were trained on his small fleet. Captain Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Will and watched the alien ships through the main viewing screen. The massive warship hung silently in space, its dark hull nearly invisible against the starfield. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. Chief Engineer Mea Torres approached from the engineering section, her boots clicking softly on the metal deck. She carried a tablet displaying the status of their experimental systems. Her face showed satisfaction as she reviewed the test results. Captain, the quantum masking systems performed perfectly during the observation phase. The alien vessels had no idea we were monitoring them for the past 6 hours. Kane nodded, his eyes still focused on the 3 alien destroyers that were now spreading out to investigate their position. The ships were elegant in design, with swept curves and gleaming hulls that spoke of advanced technology. But their construction looked fragile compared to human military doctrine. Tactical Officer Devin Walsh called out from his station. Captain, I have completed my analysis of the alien vessels. Their hulls appear to be constructed from some kind of crystalline composite material. Very light, probably very fast, but lacking the redundant armor layers we would expect from warships. The bridge of the Indomitable Will was a study in controlled chaos. Dozens of officers monitored hundreds of systems, all designed to keep the massive vessel functioning in the hostile environment of deep space. The ship represented 5 years of human engineering, built specifically for long-range operations far from any support. Kane walked to the tactical display, where a 3-dimensional image showed the positions of all vessels in the system. The alien ships were moving in a search pattern, clearly looking for what they thought was a simple cargo vessel. Their confidence was obvious in their casual formation and relaxed approach. What do we know about their species? Kane asked his intelligence officer. Lieutenant Emma Stone consulted her files. They call themselves the Hegemony, sir. Part of a larger political group that believes in strict hierarchical control of galactic space. According to our diplomatic briefings, they view humanity as an upstart species that needs to be taught proper respect. Kane frowned. The Indomitable Will was on a classified testing mission in the Outer Rim, far from any official shipping lanes. These aliens had gone out of their way to hunt what they thought was a defenseless human vessel. That suggested hostile intent rather than any legitimate peacekeeping mission, communications. Officer Lisa Park turned from her station with a concerned expression. Captain, I am intercepting alien transmissions. They are discussing capture procedures and making comments about teaching humans their place in the galaxy. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Everyone understood what that meant. These aliens were not planning a diplomatic encounter. They were planning to make an example of what they thought was a helpless human ship. Kane had been hoping to complete their weapons testing without revealing the true capabilities of human military technology. The indomitable will carried systems that were years ahead of anything the Galactic Federation knew about. But if these aliens were planning an attack, he would have no choice but to defend his ship. Chief Engineer Torres reported from her station. Captain, all systems are operating at peak efficiency. Main reactors are at full power, defensive screens are charged, and all weapon systems are ready for deployment. The indomitable will was not just large, it was built like a fortress. Human. Engineers had designed it to operate alone in hostile space, capable of fighting off entire fleets while protecting its crew. The hull was layered with redundant armor systems, and the internal structure was honeycombed with emergency compartments, weapons. Officer Janet Cruz monitored her displays with professional calm. The ship's armament was classified at the highest levels, representing breakthroughs in both energy and kinetic weapons technology. The main guns alone could punch through planetary shields, while the point defense systems could track and destroy thousands of targets simultaneously. Navigator Alex Fox called out coordinates as the alien ships continued their approach. Captain, the lead vessel is moving to an attack position. Range is now 30,000 kilometers and closing. Kane made his decision. Protocol required him to attempt peaceful contact before taking any aggressive action. He opened a communication channel to the alien vessels, hoping to resolve the situation without bloodshed. Alien vessels, this is Captain Kane of the Terran Navy vessel Indomitable Will. You are approaching a ship flying under a flag of truce. Please state your intentions. The response came quickly, transmitted in accented but understandable English. The alien captain sounded arrogant and dismissive as he spoke. Human vessel, you are in violation of hegemony space. Prepare to be boarded for inspection. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force. Kane felt anger rise in his chest. The Outer Rim was not hegemony space by any treaty he knew about. These aliens were claiming jurisdiction they did not have, threatening a vessel that had committed no crime except existing in the wrong place. Alien Captain, this is free space according to all galactic treaties. We are conducting legitimate operations under Federation law. You have no authority here. The alien response was immediate and hostile. Energy readings spiked as the three destroyers charged their weapon systems. Kane could see plasma cannons powering up and missile tubes opening along their hulls. Human. Captain, you will surrender immediately or face the consequences. The hegemony does not negotiate with inferior species. Lisa Park looked up from her communications station with alarm. Captain, they are powering weapons and moving into attack. Formation, this is definitely not a diplomatic encounter. Kane had run out of options. The aliens were clearly planning to attack his ship, probably intending to disable it and capture the crew. They had no idea what they were about to face. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to engage hostile alien vessels. All crew. To battle stations, prepare for combat operations. Alarms sounded throughout the massive ship as 2,000 crew members moved to their combat positions. Blast doors sealed critical sections, emergency medical teams prepared for casualties, and damage control parties stood ready to respond to any threats. Chief Engineer Torres monitored power distribution as the ship's systems shifted to combat. Configuration. Captain, all defensive systems are online. Reactive armor is charged, emergency repair systems are active, and all critical systems have backup power. The aliens obviously had no idea what they were attacking. Human ships were built to absorb enormous amounts of damage while continuing to fight. The indomitable will could lose half its hull and still remain operational. Kane watched as the alien vessels completed their attack approach. They moved with the confidence of predators closing in on helpless prey. In a few moments, they would learn that humans were neither helpless nor prey. The first alien ship opened fire, sending streams of plasma energy racing toward the Indomitable. The brilliant beam struck the human vessel's shields and simply dissipated harmlessly into space. The alien weapons, designed to overwhelm lighter vessels, had no effect whatsoever on human defensive technology. Kane turned to his weapons officer with a grim smile. "Well, gentlemen, I believe it is time we introduced ourselves properly. All batteries prepare to return fire." Admiral Voss felt his pride burning like acid in his chest as he listened to the reports from Captain Reeves' squadron. The idea of surrendering to a primitive human vessel was unthinkable, even if that vessel was larger than expected. His political position within the hegemony depended on maintaining an image of absolute superiority over lesser species. "Bring the Eternal Dominion to full combat readiness," Voss commanded. "We will show these humans what happens when they challenge the might of the hegemony." Battle Coordinator Pike activated the Dreadnought's weapon systems with enthusiasm. The Eternal Dominion carried experimental plasma cannons that could level cities, plus missile systems loaded with antimatter warheads. Surely no human vessel, no matter how large, could withstand such overwhelming firepower. The massive alien dreadnought accelerated toward the confrontation, its kilometer-long hull bristling with weapons. Voss was confident that once the humans saw his flagship approaching, they would quickly realize their mistake and surrender without further resistance. Captain Kane watched the approaching dreadnought on his tactical display with professional interest. The alien vessel was impressive, built along classical lines with elegant curves and gleaming hull plating. But to his experienced eye, it looked more like a ceremonial ship than a serious warship. Analysis of the incoming vessel. Kane requested from his tactical officer. Devon Walsh studied the sensor readings before responding. Length approximately 1 kilometer, displacement roughly half of our own. Hull construction appears optimized for speed rather than survivability. Weapon systems are numerous but individually smaller than our main batteries. Kane nodded. The alien approach to warship design emphasized grace and firepower over the brutal practicality that humans preferred. Their ships were built to intimidate and overwhelm through superior numbers and technology, not to absorb punishment and keep fighting. Admiral Voss opened a communication channel to the human vessel, his voice filled with arrogant confidence. "Human Captain, you face the Eternal Dominion, flagship of the Hegemony Navy. Surrender immediately, and your crew will be treated according to galactic law." Kane's response was immediate and cold. "Admiral, you are in violation of multiple Federation treaties by threatening a peaceful vessel. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences of your actions." Voss felt rage building as the human captain dared to threaten him. No inferior species had ever spoken to the hegemony with such disrespect. It was time to teach these creatures their proper place in the galactic hierarchy. All vessels attack formation, target the human ship's engines, and weapon systems. We will disable them and take their crew prisoner. The alien fleet moved into coordinated assault positions. 3 destroyers and a dreadnought against a single human vessel seemed like overwhelming odds to any reasonable observer. But Kane had not built his reputation by being reasonable. "All hands prepare for combat," Kane announced throughout his ship. "Enemy vessels are moving to attack. All defensive systems to maximum power." The Indomitable will transformed as its crew shifted to battle configuration. Blast doors sealed critical sections, emergency teams prepared for damage control, and weapon systems charged to full readiness. The massive human warship was designed to fight alone against superior numbers. Chief Engineer Mayo Torres monitored the ship's systems as they prepared for battle. "Captain, all reactors are operating at peak efficiency. Power distribution is optimized for combat operations. Defensive screens are at maximum strength." The alien attack began with a coordinated barrage from all 4 vessels. Plasma beams, missile salvos, and exotic energy weapons converged on the human ship in a display of firepower that should have been overwhelming. The space around the Indomitable will lit up like a miniature star as alien weapons discharged their fury, but the human ship continued to float serenely in space, completely undamaged by the massive bombardment. Its defensive systems absorbed, deflected, or simply ignored every weapon the aliens could bring to bear. The elegant alien warships had accomplished nothing except wasting their ammunition. Kane turned to his weapons officer with grim satisfaction. "Return fire. Show them what human weapons can do." The Indomitable Will's point defense systems came online first, creating a web of destruction around the ship. Thousands of small railguns began tracking and destroying incoming missiles with precision that bordered on the supernatural. The alien missile barrage simply disintegrated as human computers calculated intercept courses faster than the weapons could fly. Officer Janet Cruz activated the main battery with professional calm. "Captain, main guns are charged and ready, targeting solutions locked on all enemy vessels." The human ship's primary weapons were designed according to a simple philosophy: if something needed to be destroyed, use enough force to be absolutely certain. The rail cannons fired kinetic rounds that carried more energy than some stars produced in a day. The first salvo struck the lead alien destroyer with devastating effect. The elegant hull crumpled like paper as kinetic energy transferred into the ship's structure. Internal bulkheads collapsed, atmosphere vented into space, and the vessel broke apart in a cascade of secondary explosions. Captain Reeve watched in horror as his sister ship simply ceased to exist. One moment it had been a proud warship, the next it was expanding debris. The human weapons had not just destroyed the vessel. They had obliterated it so completely that rescue was impossible. Admiral Voss stared at his tactical display in disbelief as he watched one of his destroyers die. The human weapon had struck with such force that his sensors could barely track the projectile. How could any species develop such devastating firepower? The second human salvo targeted another destroyer, but this time Kane ordered his gunners to aim for non-critical systems. The kinetic round punched through the alien ship's hull and exited the other side, leaving a perfectly round hole 50 meters in diameter. The vessel survived but was completely crippled. Navigator Fox called out new contacts on his sensors. "Captain, I am detecting additional alien vessels approaching. Looks like a full battle fleet responding to their distress calls." Kane studied the tactical display as more alien ships emerged from hyperspace. Dozens of vessels, including several more dreadnoughts, were moving to surround his position. The aliens were escalating the conflict beyond anything he had anticipated. "Communications. Send a coded transmission to Fleet Command. Authorization Omega-7. Tell them we need immediate backup and full tactical support." Lisa Park sent the encrypted message through quantum communications that the aliens could not intercept. Within minutes, she received confirmation that help was on the way, but Kane knew they would have to survive the next few hours on their own. The alien reinforcements spread out to encircle the human ship, confident that sheer numbers would overwhelm even advanced human technology. But Kane had one more surprise for them, something that would change their understanding of human capabilities forever. "Weapons officer, prepare the spinal cannon. Target the asteroid field where their reinforcements are hiding." Janet Cruz looked up from her console with concern. "Sir, the spinal cannon is designed for planetary bombardment. Using it against ships could be considered a war crime." Kane's expression was grim as he made the hardest decision of his military career. They chose to escalate this conflict. Now they get to see what humans are really capable of. The Indomitable Will's main spinal cannon began charging, drawing power from every reactor on the ship. The weapon was designed to crack moons and destroy fortified positions on planetary surfaces. Against spacecraft, it would be devastatingly effective. Admiral Voss watched the human ship's energy readings spike beyond anything his instruments could properly measure. Whatever weapon they were charging, it was larger than anything in his experience. For the first time in his career, he began to fear that he had made a terrible mistake. The space around the Kepler system suddenly filled with new energy signatures as human reinforcements arrived from hyperspace. Admiral Voss watched in growing terror as sleek human warships materialized around his fleet, appearing from locations where his sensors had detected nothing moments before. Captain Kane smiled grimly as his tactical display updated with friendly contacts. The indomitable Will had not been alone after all. It had been broadcasting tactical data to a hidden fleet of human vessels positioned throughout the system, all equipped with the same advanced stealth technology that had kept them invisible. Until now, Battle Coordinator Pike stared at his instruments in disbelief as he tried to count the new contacts. Admiral, I am reading 15 human vessels, all roughly the same size as their flagship. We are completely surrounded. The human fleet consisted of ships that should not have existed according to every intelligence report the hegemony possessed. These were not primitive cargo vessels or small patrol craft. These were capital ships, each one carrying enough firepower to level a continent. Chief Medical Officer Emma Stone moved through the corridors of the indomitable Will, checking on the few crew members who had been injured during the brief engagement. The contrast was stark compared to what was happening to the alien vessels, where entire ships had been destroyed with all hands. Kane opened communication channels to his fellow captains as they coordinated their response to the alien threat. The human fleet moved with practiced precision, each vessel taking position to maximize their tactical advantage over the surrounded aliens. All vessels, this is Kane, execute Formation 7. We want these aliens to understand exactly what they are facing before we finish this. The human ships spread out in a complex three-dimensional formation that demonstrated their superior coordination and tactical doctrine. Every alien vessel found itself targeted by multiple human ships, with overlapping fields of fire that made escape impossible. Admiral Voss realized with growing horror that his reinforcements had not come to rescue his fleet. They had flown directly into a trap that the humans had been preparing for hours. His entire battle group was now at the mercy of an enemy whose capabilities far exceeded anything he had imagined. Communications. Officer Park intercepted alien transmissions as the enemy commanders tried desperately to coordinate a response. Their voices carried panic and confusion as they realized they were facing technology that defied their understanding of what was possible. Captain, Park reported, the aliens are trying to retreat, but our fleet positioning has cut off all escape routes. Several of their commanders are requesting surrender terms. Kane considered the situation carefully. The alien fleet represented a significant military force that had come here with the intention of capturing or destroying human vessels. Showing mercy now might be interpreted as weakness, encouraging future attacks. The human spinal cannon finished charging, drawing enough power to light up an entire star system. The weapon was designed to destroy fortified positions on planetary surfaces, but it would work just as well against asteroid fields where alien ships were trying to hide. Kane gave the firing order with cold precision. Fire! The spinal cannon discharged with a brilliant flash that was visible across the entire system. The beam of concentrated energy struck the asteroid field where several alien vessels had been attempting to take cover. The rock simply vaporized, leaving the hidden ships exposed and helpless in open space. The demonstration had its intended effect. Across the alien fleet, commanders began transmitting surrender requests as they realized the futility of continuing to fight. Their elegant warships were no match for human military technology. Captain Reeve, his destroyer crippled but still functional, was among the first to surrender. He had seen enough destruction to know that continued resistance would only lead to the complete annihilation of his crew. The humans had proven their point beyond any possible doubt. Navigator Fox tracked the remaining alien vessels as they powered down their weapons and began transmitting surrender codes. The brief battle was effectively over, with minimal human casualties and devastating losses for the hegemony fleet. Admiral Voss faced the most difficult decision of his career as he watched his fleet crumble around him. The Eternal Dominion was damaged but still operational, but continuing to fight would accomplish nothing except the deaths of his remaining crew members. Kane offered surrender terms that were surprisingly generous considering the circumstances. The alien crews would be treated according to galactic law. Their wounded would receive medical care, and they would be returned to hegemony space with a message for their government. This engagement is concluded, Kane announced on all communication frequencies. Let this serve as a lesson to any who would test humanity's resolve. We came to the stars seeking peace, but we brought the tools of war. Choose wisely which you will receive from us. The aftermath of the battle revealed the true scope of human preparation for galactic warfare. The ships that had seemed so advanced to the aliens were actually just the beginning of humanity's military capabilities. Entire fleets of similar vessels were being constructed in hidden shipyards throughout human space. Science. Officer Kell transmitted his analysis of the human weapons back to Hegemony High Command before his ship was captured. The report would fundamentally change how the galaxy viewed humanity, transforming them from a primitive upstart species into the most dangerous military force anyone had ever encountered. The surviving alien vessels were escorted to a human station for processing, their crews treated with professional courtesy despite their earlier hostility. The humans demonstrated that their military prowess was matched by their adherence to civilized standards of conduct. Junior Officer Nova commanded the only alien vessel that managed to escape the engagement, a small frigate that had been on the edge of the battle when the human fleet revealed itself. Her ship limped away from the system, carrying the most important intelligence in galactic history. As Nova's ship jumped to hyperspace, she looked back at the human fleet through her rear sensors. The massive warships continued their operations with calm efficiency, collecting debris and preparing to resume their mysterious testing programs in the Outer Rim. The message she carried would reshape galactic politics forever. Humanity was not the weak species they had pretended to be. They were the most formidable military power the galaxy had ever seen, and they had been hiding their true capabilities behind a facade of primitive technology. News of the engagement spread through hyperspace communication networks faster than any ship could travel. The hegemony's defeat became known throughout civilized space within days, causing panic among those who had planned to challenge human expansion. The Galactic Federation found itself in the awkward position of having seriously underestimated a new member species. Human diplomatic requests would no longer be dismissed or ignored, and trade negotiations would suddenly become much more favorable to human interests. Captain Kane filed his report on the engagement with typical human understatement, describing it as a minor skirmish with local pirates. But the alien survivors would tell a very different story, one that would make the name Indomitable Will legendary throughout the galaxy. The human fleet resumed its training exercises in the Outer Rim, waiting patiently for the next force that decided to test their resolve. The galaxy had been warned, and now it was up to each species to decide how they wanted to interact with humanity. Going forward, the age of human weakness was over, and the age of human dominance had begun.